To preview this week's matchup between #1 Alabama and the LSU Tigers, I'm joined by the most decorated offensive lineman in Alabama history and current ESPN analyst Barrett Jones. Barrett, it's great to see you.
What's up, Chris? How we doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing well, thank you. Just kind of when I was preparing for this game, one thing I noticed, LSU has only played 2 home games, and we're in December. That's just kind of crazy to me. It's kind of hard to believe, but I guess that's just the way things are with what we're dealing with right now. You're on the call this weekend for ESPN Radio. This isn't the normal Alabama-LSU matchup we've grown accustomed to and the one that you played in a couple years ago. What are your initial thoughts on this game?
Well, it certainly is a weird year, as we all know, and I think it's a year where home matchups matter a lot less than most years, because obviously there's not really a whole lot of a fan advantage. I have one thing that I noticed the other day that I was thinking to myself that hadn't been commented on much is that I've hardly seen any teams doing a silent count, because you don't need it really anywhere. And even in Death Valley, where you would certainly need some kind of really loud clap or a silent count or something, because that is still, to me, the loudest place in college football. When it's rocking, especially at night. So what those Cajuns do during the day, but they get rowdy at night, and it's awesome.
Well, I think it would be safe to say their offense is sort of in shambles right now. They've lost several of their top receivers due to opting out and injury. They don't have their starting quarterback in Miles Brennan, and the Tigers are tied for 110th nationally in rushing. With the way this Alabama defense has improved over the last several games, this matchup seems to favor the Tide pretty heavily, doesn't it?
Well, it's definitely been a struggle for them. And look, starting out the year, in some ways, the script is kind of flipped for LSU, because starting out the year they scored a bunch of points. That really wasn't the issue. Their offense looked fine, and they put up some big numbers. They just couldn't guard anybody. Terrace Marshall, you mentioned, just opted out, which that's a huge loss. He's a really good player. Jamar Chase, the defending Biletnikoff winner, opted out before the season started. So that obviously was a loss. And, Miles Brennan really was playing decent football when he was in there. He didn't get a whole lot of attention because obviously they lost some games. But that was mostly because their defense gave up just a ton of points and a ton of yards. And so, yeah, they're searching right now. And you're right, they don't have really a good run game to lean on. I think a lot of people around their program thought they'd have a really solid rushing game this year with Ty Davis-Price and some of those other guys. And that just really hadn't come to fruition with that offensive line. So it's been a struggle, and I would imagine it will continue to be a struggle against, like you said, an Alabama defense that's really come a long way.
Well, for the LSU defense, they haven't fared much better. They're allowing 30 points per game, and they're next to last in the SEC in pass defense. Auburn just lit them up a couple of weeks ago for 48 points. Looks like another good matchup for the Tide in this one as well, doesn't it?
Well, I will say that I think that this side of the ball, I mentioned the flip script earlier, is actually continued to get better throughout the season. And I think they're a far cry from the LSU defense we've seen in the past, but they still have some good players on that side of the ball. They're very young over there. Obviously, Derek Stingley Jr. Still, I think, is one of the best corners, if not the best corner in the country. So he's a good player. Yeah, I do think they're coming off, in my opinion, their best game against Texas A&M. I think they only gave up 20 points. So they really looked a lot better, and the offense obviously was just atrocious for that one. But look, the reality is you're not going to beat Alabama this year unless you're ready to score somewhere in the 40s. And because they're going to put points up on anybody. They would put some points up on the 85 Bears. So they have the best offense in college football to me. I don't think it's that close, honestly, just from how balanced they are. So they're going to score no matter who they play, and you better be ready to score with them. That's the only chance you have.
Thank you, Barrett. Kickoff in Baton Rouge is scheduled for 7 o'clock Saturday night on CBS. Reporting from the Crimson Tide Production Studio inside Bryant-Denny Stadium, I'm Christopher England with Tide TV.